Welcome everyone, this is On Just Restart, and this time we're talking about a Zelda-themed OLED Switch coming out alongside Tears of the Kingdom. So, we've talked about maybe Tears of the Kingdom launching alongside new hardware, like a more powerful Switch of some sort, and I still think that's a possibility, but there's another possibility I've discussed as well, and I think it's about time I focus on that. So yes, I think there's a good chance we see a Zelda-themed OLED come out alongside Tears of the Kingdom May of 2023. Now, some of you may be wondering my thoughts on the recent news from Digital Foundry about Switch Pro being cancelled. So we're going to talk about that as well, and how it may or may not relate. So let's just jump into the quote from Digital Foundry, and then I'll get into my thoughts about the Zelda-themed OLED that I think could happen. So, John Linneman in a Digital Foundry podcast, so I wouldn't even call this a report, more like a speculation during a podcast, which is literally what it is, but this is what is said. So I think at one point internally, from what I can understand from talking to different developers, is that there was some sort of mid-generation Switch update planned at one point, and that seems to be no longer happening. And thus, it's pretty clear that whatever they do next is going to be the actual next-generation hardware. And then he goes on to say that he doesn't expect new hardware in 2023. So, something I want to point out here is that, again, this is speculation. He opens up by saying, "so I think," and then also says, "and that seems." These are speculations based off what he's heard, nothing he actually knows. And I think it should be noted that this entire conversation is talking about a report that they got wrong. So, I feel like a lot of people are taking this and assuming, oh, well, that means there's no new hardware, that's confirmation, but their initial report was wrong. And people took that as confirmation, and now they're simply speculating. So this is no shade I'm throwing towards Digital Foundry per se, I'm simply saying that this is a speculative conversation, and yeah, we should take it into consideration, but it's not the be-all end-all. No report has been, so why should simply speculation be? That all said, for sure there's a possibility that there is no next-generation system next year, and even if there is, here Digital Foundry is saying that it's likely not a Switch Pro. If you've noticed things on my channel since 2021, since there was that whole debacle about the reports and it just being a Switch OLED, I haven't really talked about Pro. It's mentioned occasionally because of necessity, but I don't talk about it happening. Like, whenever I make a video about new Switch hardware, I usually refer to it as Switch 2. Something like that, not Switch Pro. So I've moved on from this mid-generation refresh idea, even though I still think that there's some logic behind it, but it wouldn't be quite a mid-gen refresh. It would be a whole other beast, and I've talked about it in other previous videos. I'm not going to focus on that for this discussion. What I want to focus on, though, is this possibility that, yeah, maybe there is no new hardware next year. That's possible. If there's no new hardware next year, what do we get instead? And what I think makes sense is some other OLED editions. And with Tears of the Kingdom coming out May, considering how there's been this huge history of hardware releases alongside Zelda, and if not hardware releases, some sort of special edition, well, if there's no new hardware coming out next year, then the next logical bet would be, okay, some sort of new special edition Switch. And considering that we got a special edition Switch for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, the OLED version, and then also an OLED version for Splatoon 3, yeah, I think there's a really good chance we could see a Zelda OLED Switch for Tears of the Kingdom. I want to point out, a few weeks ago, Mike Odyssey, a friend of the channel, put out a video that showed information of Nintendo filing a patent for some sort of OLED-like Switch. Now, this could be a patent for new hardware, but it also could be a patent for another special edition. And Mike talks about in his video how there's a history of these patents coming out shortly before some sort of announcement, be it a new special edition or a revision. So, there is evidence to support this idea that yes, something is coming out alongside Tears of the Kingdom in May. And going back to the Splatoon 3 and Pokemon OLEDs, think about what those OLEDs were for. So, Splatoon 3 is a successor to Splatoon 2, one of the best-selling games on Switch. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, the successors to the mainline Pokemon series, several games that have come out on Switch, also the best-selling games on Switch. So Tears of the Kingdom is a successor to Breath of the Wild, also one of the best-selling games on Switch. So I definitely think in some way, shape, or form, they're going to have some additional sort of fanfare or merchandising or hardware to boost the launch for Tears of the Kingdom. It's kind of a no-brainer, I would say. So yes, something is coming out alongside Tears of the Kingdom, I would say. There's a patent that suggests so, there is the history that suggests so, and I would say just business sense suggests so as well. Is it possible we don't get something? Yeah, it's possible. But I definitely think we're getting something, and while I would love to see new hardware, and I still think that it makes a lot of sense, there is also an entire other possibility of it being a Zelda OLED. And from one perspective, that may be a little disappointing, because you may want to see Tears of the Kingdom running in maybe 4K or a higher frame rate, but let's keep in mind that the predecessor of Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, is still considered to be one of the most impressive Nintendo games to date. It was made ground up for the Wii U, the previous system of the Switch. The Switch is a more powerful, more capable system, so Nintendo developing a game ground up for the Switch, it's going to look and run better than something made for the Wii U. On top of that, this is the longest gap we've seen between major Zeldas ever. In other words, Tears of the Kingdom has been worked on for an even longer amount of time than Breath of the Wild. So yes, they're going to make optimizations, they're going to figure out different ways to maneuver the system's mechanics and create the best performance and graphics they can for this game on the Switch. So it's still going to look and run impressive compared to other Switch games that we've gotten so far. It may be the most impressive Switch game yet. Actually, I feel like that's a pretty easy bet. Tears of the Kingdom will be the most impressive game we've seen on Switch thus far. The only other thing that I think might surpass it might be maybe a Metroid Prime 4 or a 3D Mario, but by May of 12th, 2023, it's going to be the most impressive game on Switch. So even if we don't get new hardware to push this game even further and make it look even better, it's still going to be really cool and really impressive, and we're going to get some Zelda memorabilia here. We're going to get a Zelda-themed Switch as an alternative to new hardware, which I think is a nice consolation prize, I would say. I think that's pretty good. We haven't gotten anything like that for Breath of the Wild, which I do feel like is kind of a missed opportunity. Yes, launching alongside the Switch itself was a big win for Nintendo, but I would love to see a Zelda-themed Switch. So if that's what we get May 12th of 2023, I'm finally going to buy an OLED. I have been waiting and waiting because I've been thinking, oh, maybe new hardware is not too far off. But I think come May 12th, if there's not a new system, I'm going to get that OLED because I've been rocking with my initial Switch from March of 2017, the launch day Switch. So I'm ready to get that upgrade, and I think it's going to be exciting, whatever or however it looks. I imagine that it'll be some sort of play on the theming for Tears of the Kingdom. Maybe they'll have some green swirls. That may be kind of cool. Maybe they'll go in a different direction. Maybe they'll have a little bit more of like that ancient runic kind of look. What do you think they're going to do? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways, everyone, this is Honest Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.